Hello, computer glasses. Actually, this helps a lot. This is Dr. Jason Munsell. It is about 5:20 on February. What February? Black History Month. Groundhog's Day. I don't know. I wasn't paying any attention. Bill Murray did see his shadow, as he oftentimes does. It's about 5:20 again. Yeah, I just said that. Excuse me. I told you that this week I would say a little bit more stuff about identity, that stuff that's not really in your book though. But I do want to reiterate, and I've been emailing you about this, that the books are in. And I checked the other day, and not too many people have picked their books up. So if you haven't, that would be a good thing to do if you can. And also, I mentioned that I would say a little bit more on the paper and also issues of self-disclosure. And I've pretty much already done that. But I would highly, highly suggest that you send me some sort of rough draft of the paper. And I would be more than happy to read it. I am going to, I've gotten a few, and I'm going to try to get to those as soon as I can, probably tomorrow. But in any case, so what I want to do, and if ever you have questions, I know you're continuing to thread, and I'll have another forum up at some point. I've just been super duper busy this week, more busy, even more busy than usual. Remember the tweets and the emails and everything like that. I'm not the kind to constantly remind you, because a lot of the stuff's in the syllabus. And this is sort of the thing with online stuff. I mean, a lot of it is up to you. You got to be very on the ball, on the globe. Yeah. Okay, so a little bit more on identity. Hopefully, this will add to some of the stuff that we have already been talking about when it comes to issues of self-presentation and the research on online dating platforms. So, more on identity, and all this stuff is extra stuff that is coming from this particular book, not the book that you hopefully now have in your hands. Okay. And I'll put this slide it is a show up at some point here soon. Okay. One thing that's really important, and this is, I'm not trying to have this contradict some of the stuff that I have said, but to add to it. We all constantly are trying to manage our identity. That's really sort of the same thing as saying we're constantly managing ourselves. We're constantly self-presenting or deciding what to present about ourselves. Managing privacy, communication privacy management is all part of that. So we all constantly manage our symbolic markers to craft identity. How so? How do we do that? How do we manage that? Sometimes it's conscious, sometimes it's not conscious. But self-presentation actually is an example of that. Am I going to show the ought self, the actual self, the ideal self, and all those other things that we've talked about? But so we're constantly, through what we wear, from a face-to-face point of view, the pictures that we take, and then mess with them to make us look better than we actually looked, or worse, depending on the situation. I mean, there's lots of different ways that we sort of manipulate, and manipulation is probably the wrong word, because manipulate connotes sort of it's bad. But how do we play, in a sense, manage is the right word, various symbolic markers, and everything is a symbolic marker, to craft our identity. You know why I grew this beard? Because I'm manly. There is actually, there's all these, I'm self-disclosing way too much, but on Pinterest, there's all these little beard clubs and do-it-yourself beard oil, and there has been this traditional sort of sense of beard equates masculinity and everything like that. And I am by far perhaps the most masculine person in this house right now, because my wife is out of town. Okay. So, what do you think about who you are? When you think of who you are, who are you? Who are you? What stories do you tell others about yourself? You've heard some of my stories. What do others think about you? What kind of stories do they tell about you? And notice that, some of this stuff is obviously from a narrative, sort of mythic logic. That is, there is this thing called the narrative paradigm. If you're in my sports comm class, you know this already. But oftentimes, Walter Fisher argues that we sort of view the world through the lens of stories. And so we are in the constant process of creating or structuring the story of our lives, our biographies, our autobiographies. We are, in a mythic sense, we are the heroes of our own sort of heroic life journey. But there, we make choices, though. We select certain things. And so we are constantly in the process of structuring our personal and our social identities. And it is always a process of construction. We're constantly making these things. Making ourselves, making identity. So that process, that doing, is very, very important. Who am I? I don't know. Now, there are some very old traditions, old sort of perspectives of identity. And when I say old, it's not just old-fashioned or conservative. I'm not going there. It is just theoretically old. Just like, folks back in the day said men were smarter than women because the brains were potentially bigger. Science showed that that's stupid, but folks thought that way. So, the old sort of perspective that is now outdated, first, that there is some essential or natural identity that we have. That is, we got DNA, we got stuff, we are predisposed to lots of different things, obviously. But to say that we have some sort of essential, true self, it's too simple. It's too simple. These all blur together, but identity is unitary. That is, there is one true me. This is me, and this the actual me. But then the actual me also has the ought me, and the ideal me, which again showcases that there is not a unitary me, self, whatever. And then the last thing, identity is fixed or stable. Once we find ourselves, then woohoo, yeah. Life is messy. We change. People change. Who you were last week might not be who you are right now this second. I don't know. So this old perspective is problematic. And again, it's not simply opinion or perspective. This is theoretical stuff from psychology, sociology, communication studies, science, medical science. I had some interesting discussions today with some people about issues of gender. And you all know that we have multiple, we have sex, biological sex, female or male, and then all these sort of socially constructed gender behaviors. But, we oftentimes think of masculine and feminine, but now we have transgender. We got all these things going on. And science has shown that there are folks who are part male and part female biologically. Traditionally, we have said that's not right, that's not normal, and so parents have, done surgical things or whatever. But science, the more we understand, chromosomes and DNA and all that type of stuff, the old sort of, male, female, that's it, as an example, is just wrong. Okay. So we need to problematize any sort of old or traditional perspective of identity to better appreciate how computer-mediated communication sort of impacts identity and everything like that. Okay, so the more contemporary view is that identity is a necessary fiction and a process. And don't get fiction confused with fiction. Necessary fiction. We contrive this stuff, right? Contrive. We contrive this stuff. We write our own stories through the choices that we make, through everything like that. So it is a necessary fiction. But we create it, and it is a process. It's not just here I am. It is socially constructed. How we see others, how we see ourselves, is a product of social lessons. That's why, we got a lot of problems when it comes to issues of racism, sexism, and everything like that, and how that impacts issues of identity. If you've ever thought that person is weird, there you go. Why? Why are you not weird and that person is cool? I don't know. Why is that beautiful and that not? Why is that whatever and that not? And we engage in a performance of identity, of identification and identity. That is, right now, I'm performing. I'm performing when I'm jogging down the street, and I am a jogger. I am managing my markers in a way, as I am hopefully losing, burning some calories. Sometimes I eat candy bars while I run, just hoping everything sort of balances itself out. Or some chicken. That'd be funny. It'd be so funny just to see that look on people's face. You go to KFC or something like that, get a bucket of chicken, and then go down to the Riverwalk or something like that and run. Just eat a bucket of chicken while you're running. We have a bucket of chicken. You know how folks have these little contraptions where they have water if they're doing these long endurance runs or something like that. You could have something like mashed potatoes and gravy. Okay, sorry, I'm hungry. It's dinner time and I haven't eaten. But we perform these things. We are constantly on a stage, right? And we have multiple identities. We are, and it veers into ideas of roles, but we are students, teachers, mothers, fathers, brothers, sisters, whatevers. But it's not just this is who I am. I am many things. It's not like multiple personalities or anything like that, but it's just that we things are too messy and complex to say this is me. And of course, everything that is not the old type, like it's fixed, it's one. So its contemporary view of identity is much more complex and appreciates the complexity of identity more so than the old paradigms. Okay, so now to apply this. Well, first, in a sense, we're thinking about identity on CMC. The internet, in a way, is just another stage for us. Just like face-to-face is a stage. Just like, what you decide to wear when you go to a job interview is a stage. Just like what delicious fragrance, it's not delicious, it's fragrant, you decide to wear is breaking news. CMC. Uber CEO Travis Kalanick says he is quitting President Trump's Economic Advisory Board. That's interesting. I wonder if he's going to be able to get a ride home. Okay. Got a text from Dr. Burr. All right. So, in a sense, the internet, another forum, another stage for us to offer, perform, manage our identity. Michel Foucault, who was a French philosopher, I'll just say that, discusses things he calls technologies of power, and that technologies of power impact how we craft identity, and identity oftentimes is a very hegemonic practice because a lot of our technologies work to sustain dominant ways of thinking and dominant modes of self. That was complicated, wasn't it? So, for instance, hegemony, if you did not know, is the process of dominant ways and oftentimes oppressive ways of seeing